Okay, so welcome everybody to this session. It's been a short while since we've last had a webinar on anything to do with EdgeRater, and the reason is I've been working quite hard on getting EdgeRater Pro 2024 out the door, and that happened yesterday. Hopefully folks have had a chance to download the program now, and there are some differences between 2020 and 2024. I thought it would be a good time to have a webinar. This is going to be a 4-part series. It's called From Beginner to Pro, All You Need to Know. This is part 1 of 4. And the idea here is that I'm just going to go through all the features. So if you have never heard of EdgeRater before, you've never used the program, don't worry. We're going to go from the beginning. So for those of you who already know the software, you may get a little, maybe a little bit of a review at times, but I'm sure there'll be loads of things that you will be able to pick up. So one thing that I think is really interesting that we never really got into a lot before is how to create your own templates, how to do your own trade simulations and back testing and that kind of thing. So lots of good things. But before we get into any of that, what I wanted to do is talk about what's new in 24. So let me just see if I can advance this slide. Okay, what's new in 24? Let's have a look. So in 24, EdgeRater is twice as fast, believe it or not. So it was already quite fast at running scans, but now it is twice as fast. And the reason for this is that it's now built on the .NET 7, not Windows 7. That's a completely different thing and very old technology. But .NET 7, that is a very new technology from Microsoft. Actually, I believe they just released last month .NET 8, but they're on like a yearly release cycle. So we're getting caught up with the .NET releases, which is a big deal because the previous EdgeRater Pro 2020 was based on 4.5.2, and that is quite old technology now. And it's amazing by upgrading just how much of a speed improvement you can get. So you'll notice when you run templates, you should get the results twice as fast, but it also allows us to move forward with new technology as it's introduced, and I can introduce new features into the software based on these later versions of .NET. Now, the unfortunate thing about that is that if you are running Windows 7, this will not run on Windows 7. I know for 99.9% of people that will not be an issue, but I'm pretty sure some people are still running Windows 7. Microsoft no longer support Windows 7, and we've had to kind of bite the bullet there and say that we don't support Windows 7 either. But remember, that's a completely different thing to .NET 7, which is the latest and greatest. What else? Well, you can install EdgeRater and EdgeRater Pro 2020 and 24 side by side. You will get 2 different desktop icons. So if you have them both on your computer, you can always make sure you're running the correct one. There's no reason to have both. And so as soon as you have installed 24 and you're comfortable using it, I would recommend going and deleting 2020 just so you don't get confused. And there are bound to be some kind of cross issues because some of the files we'll get into are stored in the same location. So I haven't really come across anything that's a problem there, but it would just be much simpler to uninstall 2020 and keep 24. In the program, one of the new features is the ability to have new colors and themes. Not a big deal, but some people do like to customize their desktops. There's a whole new section on doing that. There's different options now for downloading the premium data, whereas before, when you downloaded data, it was a one-shot thing. You pressed the button and it downloaded everything, and that can take quite a while because the options data that gets downloaded actually is quite large. And if you're not using the options data, there's no need to actually download it. That will save some time. So you can actually now just press the individual buttons that we're pointing to here, where it says EOD data, You could just do that to download your end of day data, or you could just press options data to download the options data or templates data. These will be green now, so the color scheme has changed from previous. Green when the data is available, and it will be grayed out when you have the latest data and there's nothing to do. Another big change in 24 is a new script designer. So if you have embarked on creating your own chart scripts, then you will have noticed before that you have to do that one at a time. You create a chart script, and when you're finished with it, you can close the window down and bring up another one and create a new chart script. That's completely changed now. It is a much more pleasant experience for creating multiple scripts. And it looks like this. We will get into that. But you can see here that it's a tree-like view. We'll see more of that as we go on. All the scripts will appear in the tree on the left-hand side, and then you can write your script in the middle here, and then you can just apply it to a chart, which appears on the right-hand side. So you can just monitor the indicators and the events as you're writing them in code. It makes for a very nice way of verifying that the scripts you're writing are correct. So that's a big redesign, and I think that will make a big difference to people who write all the scripts. There's new backtesting batch processing settings. So if you've used the backtesting portion of EdgeRater before, you know that when you're doing it manually, obviously you've got the entries and exits tab, you've got the trade simulation tab, and you can run a batch test. I call that manually, but there is a way of doing it by batch, where you have a file, which is the file that's represented here, and one row configures one particular simulation. So you can put as many rows as you like in this file and run multiple simulations, and you can change all of the parameters within this file too. But there are new settings in here. We never used to have a simulation start date and end date per row. So now you can actually do that. And we never used to have the scripted entries and exits, and I'll talk about that in a future session. But that's now been added too. So more flexibility with batch processing. Yeah, I've been working on this release. I started working with Dr. Ken Long. I don't know how many people have heard or know of Ken Long, but we started a collaboration. It's actually been quite a while now. We started working on some templates, and then things got in the way. We got a bit distracted, and then we came back on track a few months ago. And so we have now templates that coincide with Dr. Ken's systems and terminology and his philosophy of trading. These will help you to identify stocks that Dr. Ken Long looks at. It will just make it much easier if you are one of his members of his group. So that's been an interesting set of work. And actually, these templates are a little bit more complicated than our regular templates, and they have taken quite a while to put together. But if you go to the website now, if you run these templates, you'll find this page here, and it talks a little bit about Ken Long, who he is, what systems he has, what websites he has. And there's a book that I really recommend if you are looking at these templates. It's a very reasonable buy. I think it's $10 on Amazon if you get the Kindle version, but definitely a recommended read. You can't go wrong with $10 for the information that's in there. So that book has also been worked on with Ken works with his brother on that, and also Phil, who is an EdgeRater client, and Griffin have worked on that too. And Phil and Griff actually run a company called Ableway Tech, and I've been working closely with them. And their company teaches people how to apply trading systems. So they will teach you how you can actually write back tests and put together a trading system and follow that system. Actually, applied systems development is the name of the course, and it's highly recommended to follow that. So that's been an interesting work too. And so those guys, Wei Tech and Ken Long are work very closely together. So it's all kind of ties in. Okay, so I did say this is going to be from beginner to pro. So we will start at the very beginning. And so for those of you who've never seen EdgeRater before, what is EdgeRater? EdgeRater, in a nutshell, is a program that I wrote. I started writing back in 2009, and in a nutshell, it's designed for a visually oriented trader, provides powerful and high-speed processing of stock price, options, and earnings data, enabling enhanced decision-making for a competitive edge in trading. So that is what it is. And it does that in some very unique ways. There are two main capabilities in the program. One is a scanning capability, and the other is a backtesting capability. And these can be manual processes, such as in the entries and exits tab, you can do a manual scan. In the trade simulation tab, you can do a manual backtest. But there are also automated ways of doing these things through templates. And it's really designed for the visually oriented trader and the person who likes to verify with their own eyes, what they're looking at and what's happening with their systems they're putting together. So the data that EdgeRater uses is, there are three types of data really for the program. There's the regular open, high, low, close volume data. And then you have some options data, which we'll talk about soon. And then there's earnings data. And all of these are historical. So it's not just what's the current bar of data. This data we have goes back years and years, and it allows you to do backtesting on certain strategies, ideas that you might have, or if there's something that you've been using for a while, it's not quite working, you can run some tests and find out exactly what's going on. So, and then I said we have this idea of trading templates. What is a trading template? Trading template, it really encapsulates ideas that people have spent years on, and it's part of their own methodologies. So you can put that information together into a template and enable people to just readily find stocks of interest. Now, it doesn't, obviously, if you scan for a stock, that does not make a trading system, but it highlights things that are being looked at by these folks. Obviously, to put a system together and to trade successfully, there are many other factors involved. And so you should reach out to the people who are the gurus, essentially, and follow along with their teachings is the idea. Let's get into the actual demo, and we'll actually take a look at the new EdgeRater Pro. And we close down this slide. 1 second. Okay, so for a lot of people, this is not going to look a whole lot different to EdgeRater Pro 2020, but I will call out some of the important changes as we go along. The first thing you'll notice, obviously, is on the desktop, there's a nice level 24 there. When you run the program, as I said before, there's this whole section on appearance where you can change your themes, etc. And you will also have this nice little badge indicating your subscription status, if you're a trial user, if you're a pro user, etc. Okay, so templates came along after the initial 2009, 2010 release of the program. In those years, EdgeRater was really about backtesting and scanning, but it really only consisted of these two tabs: the entries and exits tab and the trade simulation tab. And as people got more into that, and they were developing their own scripts to do scanning and to do trade simulation, then there was a need that people wanted to be able to run these things without having to do the manual steps every time. So you can kind of take that, can up that information, and templates were born. A template is essentially that information encapsulated into one place. And so trading templates, when you run the program, you'll find you'll start out on the templates tab because that's where most people spend their time in the program initially. And this is organized into, it's quite important to kind of just know how this is all set out. You have a symbol list section on the left-hand side. You have a template library on the right-hand side. And then you have categories of templates on the right-hand side. As you click through the categories, so for instance, in the earnings category, there's only one template in here. In the seasonal analysis category, you find there are 5 templates in here. So you go down through the, to select the templates to run by, first of all, selecting the category and then selecting the template. Most people only run a handful of templates. And so after you've used the program for a while and you know what templates you want, you end up placing them into your favorites by just placing a little star beside the template, and then they will appear in the favorites category. And that therefore becomes the only category of templates that you ever need to have open until you're ready to move on and look at other things. So that's a nice way of having that categorized. Okay, so if you are not sure what a template does, because obviously there are now over 100 templates in the system, and all of the templates are available to everybody who is a current subscriber to the software. Every single template is available. And if you want to know what the templates do, you can always press this little search templates icon, and that will bring up the web page. Let's get rid of that. Yes, so that'll bring up the got it. Yeah, that'll bring up the web page with the list of all of the templates on. It replicates the categories that you see over on the right-hand side here. I can expand that up a bit, make it a little bigger for you to see. And then if you go through these categories, you'll then get a list of the templates. And if you need more info on what's in there, for instance, Ken Long category is right here. You can then go more info and we'll come up with, it normally gives you an example of the report that's generated from the template with some annotations on the report, a description of the template, where to go for more information, etc. And in this case, there's a video section because Ken has put together a couple of videos on his techniques. And as part of this series of 4 webinars, Ken is actually going to come on. I'm not sure if it's going to be a live thing or if he's going to record something on the day. It just depends how busy he is. And he'll talk more about the use of his templates. So that's for Ken's things. And then for everything else, that's all in here too. Not every single template has actually got documentation in here, but for the most part they do. And that's where you'll find more information about those templates if you're not sure what they do. Now, to run the template, it's a very straightforward process. This was really designed to be as straightforward as possible. And the idea is you have your template selected, you have your symbol list selected, you press run. Essentially, that's what you do. Okay, as the template runs, it will do a little processing and it will come up with a report. And the report is the final output of the template. The report looks like an Excel document because underneath the hood, under the hood, in the file system, when this was run, it generated an Excel file, as they have the extension .xlsx. I'm just going to show you where that is because this is an important part of knowing the program. And so I'm looking at my file system, and if I go into my documents folder and then go to EdgeRater, it's always under documents. So wherever your system has documents pointed to, which can be in different places depending on your system. Some people have OneDrive and they have documents on their OneDrive. Some people don't, and so it goes somewhere else. But it's under documents, and then you'll have the EdgeRater folder. So whenever you run a template, it generates a report and it puts it in the reports folder. So as you run more and more, this will just get, so the one I just ran was seasonality now. So if I sorted this by dates, that was the first one I ran just now. And so as you go on day by day, this folder never gets deleted. So it can fill up, and it's always a good idea to come in here and do some housekeeping and delete things that you don't actually want to keep. Oftentimes for me, I actually just clean up the whole folder because there isn't actually a lot of things, after the scan's been done or the report's been generated, a week from now, that's not so interesting. So I might just delete the whole thing and start it running from scratch again. Everything is in this EdgeRater folder. All the user files, all the scripts that you've written for yourself, all your symbol lists are in here. These are text files, essentially. Everything is in this folder. So this is a very important location. So if you ever are moving your installation to a new computer, or if you ever want to back up all of your information, you can just back up the entire EdgeRater folder just to make sure you have everything. You don't need everything in here. For instance, you wouldn't need the logs, the directory. The logs is essentially a list of log files that are generated as the program's running. You probably don't need to keep those, but it's a good idea to back up, I think, the whole of this folder. It's not that big. And then you know that you've got everything in case of a hard drive failure or something like that. Chart scripts are interesting. So this is you'll see a difference now between 2020 and 2024. So every time you write a script, okay, and a script is essentially something that produces an indication on the chart. Can be a simple moving average, could be a scan, looking for crossovers of moving averages or anything. There are thousands of scripts, by the way, built into the system. Every time you write your own scripts, they're going to appear by default in this file here, myscripts.xml. Okay, that is an XML file, and that's really just a text representation of the script. Now, in order for the script to run within the software, it has to be compiled, and that's something that you do in the script designer. When it compiles, previously it puts it into a compiled folder, the compiled DLL. Now it puts it into compiled 24. So you can, because they are actually two different operating system frameworks, essentially .NET 7 versus .NET 4.5, they're different DLLs. So now, in order that you can have both 20 and 24 running side by side, they're compiled to different locations, essentially, is what I'm saying. So when you compile a script, the actual DLL will be placed into compiled 2024, and it's these files that actually contain all the scripts that appear over here under chart scripts. Everything that you see in here comes from those DLLs in that file location. So that's an important thing to know. If ever you see, sometimes this happened. I've had people report that this thing is empty. You don't see any system indicators or anything like that. Just take a look in the file system and make sure they're there. If they're not, you might have to re-download the program in order to get the system files. But that is such a rare occurrence. I have not seen that very often. Okay, so that's where the data is. Where then are the templates? Let's take a look. So if I go back over to the EdgeRater folder again, I'm in Documents EdgeRater. You see there's a folder here called Templates. All of the templates that are system templates, that's templates delivered by EdgeRater to you, they're all contained under the system folder. So this is everything delivered to you, 250 items in here, and they are all basically Excel documents. Whenever we create templates in EdgeRater, when I say we, I mean I generate them in Excel, and save them, and they become XLSX files. And EdgeRater is able to read those files and generate those reports. So template creation, and we'll get into that in a later part of this series, is all done using Excel. And this is where they're stored. When you're creating your own templates, by the way, you put them in the templates folder, not system folder. System folder is reserved for EdgeRater use, and it could be overwritten at any time. I mean, it's not it's normally not, but it could be. So don't put things in system. Anyway, I won't labor that point. Okay, so that's most of the things in there, and some configuration settings are in here too. Chart layouts, for instance, tag files, tracing relations. We'll get into that in a later session. Okay, so running seasonality now. I did that. Okay, I selected the template, I selected the symbol list, I pressed run, and it generated this report. So this is a very common theme in reports, is that they are linked to charts. Reports are linked to charts. So that when I click around the report that's been generated, I'm actually the chart is updating to show this the stock that has been selected. And if you have annotations turned on, that's this little bar here, observing, it will point to the bar that the report was run on the day that the report was run for, which may not actually be today. It may not be the latest day, because in EdgeRater, you always have the ability to go to previous days to run scans. And this is a very, very handy, thing if you're doing testing out of interest, not sort of testing with actual scripts and trace simulations, but you're like, okay, I've got a template that is showing me some scans, and I have a feeling that on a particular day this would have brought up a whole bunch of stocks that would have been interesting for trading. Well, you can go and change the run date for your report, and you can go back to any day that is in your list of data, in your symbol list. And so you say maybe August the 1st, 23, and you could say I'm going to run the good, bad, ugly report for August the 1st. And as that runs, okay, the reports come up, and you can see the date now for the report is 8/1/23. So all of this information, this data in here, is for that date. Let me expand this up so you can see a bit clearer. Okay, and so the observing icon is pointing at, it's the last bar on this chart because the chart's been scrolled over, but you can see that that was 8/1/23. I can put that bar anywhere on the chart I like by scrolling. And it should always now, when you move to a new stock, keep that observing pointer in the same location on the chart, as if it can, depending on how much data you have for a particular stock. So it's always in the same place relative to the beginning and end of the chart. And so you can just go down and see where these were. You can see that, and you can see what happened after that, essentially. So for instance, this is showing me on 8/1/23. I can sort this by, it is automatically sorted by highest gaining stock. So Carvana was the highest gaining stock on that day, and I can quickly just scroll down through here. I know that was a 7%, 6.9% gain. I can see exactly what happened after those. Those are essentially, they are events. Even though this is a scan, they can become events for a trading system. We'll talk about that in other sessions. So that's a very handy feature, definitely. One thing I should say is sometimes you don't have enough data in a chart to show you the entire, to have that positioned exactly where it was on the previous chart. And sometimes your chart gets a little bit messed up, and so you might end up with a completely blank chart. If that happens, just press this button down here, which is the zoom out button, and that will bring you back to some information that you can then start scrolling through. Now with charts, you've got all of the scripts that I mentioned before. You've also got the chart layouts. And layouts, there's a bunch of pre-configured layouts, which are configured for some of the templates. And as I scroll down through there, you can see the charts are updating to show me those layouts. So they've all been pre-configured. And the layout basically is just a set of indicators that have been applied to a chart and then saved. And then when you go to that layout, it puts all those indicators back on the chart. So for Ken Long's templates, they're all linked to the Ken Long swing system layout. And this is the layout you get for Ken, and I'm sure he will explain all of those when he comes on. So that's layouts. If you want to start from a brand new layout, so an empty chart, one trick is to just press this. You can press this single chart layout button, and it will basically restart your chart with no indicators, just the open, high, low, close candles. If you don't like candles, you can use OHLC bars. You can always expand the chart or shrink it up a bit to get what you like. You've got daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly bars. And we'll go back to daily. And we've also got Heikin-Ashi bars, and then a straightforward line, which is a link to the close price on each day. That's useful if you don't have OHLC values. For instance, in some indexes, you only have the close price. And if you just plotted a regular candle, you'll just see a little dash on each day. So a line is much better in those cases. So go back to candles. Seems to be my default, although I do quite like HLC and OHLC bars as well. But anyway, we'll go back to candles. There we go. Now, if there's an indicator that's not in the chart layout, it's not a pre-configured layout, but there's something that you are want to put on the chart, the first thing to do is find it. Control F is a standard Windows key. F for Freddy, or Foxtrot, I believe is the proper term for that. So if you do Control and Foxtrot, so you can do a search for something like, let's MACD, for instance. Let's have a look at that. So we see system indicators, there's the MACDs, system scans, there's the MACDs, and in the HK scripts, there's some MACDs too. If you find the one that you want, you can, now depending on what you do at this point, will determine where it will appear on the chart. Some scripts are designed as overlays for the main chart area. For instance, a moving average, you put it on the main chart, but some are designed for sub areas. So if I want it on the main area, I drag it over and drop it on the main area. If I want it on the sub area, I can double click and then it will appear down on in a new sub area. If I did it twice, it's going to put 2 down in there. I can always, you know which area is selected because it's going to have this salmon colored highlights. And so you can always delete an area by coming up here and pressing the minus arrow to remove a chart area, remove both chart areas if I wanted. And we're back to where we were. And I'll put one of those back in again. Okay, so that's how you add scripts. And then scripts have certain parameters. How do you change a parameter? Well, that's done over on formula parameters. So for the MACD, 12, 26, and 9 are the commonly used numbers for that. But if you wanted to have different numbers, you can put in your own. 30, for instance, and it will immediately update to show you the new output of that. That's how you change those. If you want to get rid of just an indicator, you keep the same area there, but you want to get rid of the indicator, you can press this X up here. And so now you can see I've got a blank area, nothing in there. So what you could do in this case is you could take, let's say, this and drag it down into there if you wanted to. Okay. The difference between a scan and an indicator is scans produce 0 or 1 values. Indicators are generally continuous. It's generally continuous data. So for instance, a moving average would be an indicator, whereas a scan generates an event when a certain condition is true, and it's either 0 or 1. So for instance, this CAM CT is a scan, and it's, whatever it's doing. I'm not going to sort of talk about what the code is doing, but it's basically when the condition that it's looking for, whatever that might be, is true, it's going to generate this one value. So you see the event here was 0 in this case. Here it's gone to a 1, it's gone to a 0 again, 1 again. So this is the beginnings of how you do trade simulation or backtesting. These terms are used synonymously. That's easy for me to say. In EdgeRater, if I say trade simulation, it really refers to the fact that I'm generating some entry signals and some exit signals, and I'm going to the trade simulation tab, and I am trying to simulate a bunch of trades with those signals. And that is generally referred to as backtesting in other places, and also in EdgeRater. So so that's basically charts, kind of a quick rundown on charts. Nothing really has changed between 2020 and 24 in charting, except for obviously we've added new scripts to support the Ken Long layouts and scans. So, but that does lead me to, so we've taken a look at reports viewer. We'll go to the entries and exits tab. I'm giving you a quick rundown of all the things in here. So this is a place where you can use a scan to generate essentially a list of stocks that meet the criteria on certain days. So for instance, let's be specific about this. So go to the system scans. Let's look at this one here, AUBB. It says what it is right next to it. It's cross above the upper Bollinger Band. If I double click it, it pops it into this selector here. And if I just run it against my list of liquid options, I'll just do that. Okay, we now have 10 years. Okay, if I go back over here, this is 2014 through to yesterday, essentially Friday. Okay, so it generated that information very quickly. And it's basically a list of all the stocks that meet the cross above the upper Bollinger Band when the Bollinger Band periods are set to 20 periods with 2 standard deviations. Anytime a stock crosses that, it appears in here. So we can see the days where many stocks met that criteria. So 11, 14, 23, that's interesting. General theme with EdgeRater, and I mentioned this earlier, is that it's for the visually inclined, somebody who likes to verify things visually and rather than just relying on scripts to do things. So you know, it's great to see them in this list here, but why not double click it and actually see it on a chart? That makes things a little clearer. So I double clicked it. Now I'm looking at Airbnb, and it's pointed the event on the actual bar that the event occurred. I'll change my layout here to be a more simple layout. I have my own called MA cross layout. Let's use that and close that. Okay, so in fact, a better layout is to just use the system scan layout and just have a cross above the upper Bollinger Band, AUBB, pop that in there, get rid of the other one. So come over here, delete that. So now I've got these events whenever it crosses above, the stock crosses above the upper Bollinger Band. Be nice to see the upper Bollinger Band, wouldn't it? So then we can go to find our indicator for Bollinger Bands, and they're right here. But I always like to use the area Bollinger Bands, which is right here. I drag that over, and there we are. So whenever these whenever the scan condition is true, it's a 1 value, it should coincide with when the close price of the bar crosses above the upper Bollinger Band, which you can visually verify that is true. It's always a good idea to visually verify scans are doing the right thing, because you can quite often make little mistakes in your scripting that lead to big errors in your simulation. So always go through and check a few. Now that I've got this chart up and I've positioned it to be always on top, I can actually just scroll through this entire list of events here, and I can see every single one of these cases it was a cross above the upper Bollinger Band. And that is quite fast for you to be able to do that. You can go left and right, which is, if you go right, you're going back in time. Okay, so I'm going from 11/7/23 is this day. If I go further right, all the way back to, say, 21, I can look at DraftKings in 21. That was a condition when it crossed above the upper Bollinger Band. Okay, you can see that the event was true. You can look at the chart, you can see that it was true. Okay, this is the start of how to create a trading system, or how to give yourself the statistics of what happens in general, what has happened, I should say, because it's not about what's going to happen in the future, it's about what happened in the past. But when you have an idea for a trading system and you're doing backtesting, you're always running your idea on historical data. So that it can lead to curve fitting. That's a very common thing to happen when you're doing trading systems, is that you refine your system so much that it perfectly fits the historical data, and you have left no data to do forward testing on. It's very important to not curve fit, basically. So anyway, so it's the start of this might be the genesis of an idea. I'm not saying cross above upper Bollinger Band has any significance, but you can convince yourself that there's some potential for that to be significant. Because what does it actually mean? It means that in over 20 periods, okay, so 20 look back bars, there is a standard deviation of price change, and the price on this particular day has crossed above 2 standard deviations. Okay, you can set standard deviations to 3 or 4 and see how many of those there are, but the default setting in Bollinger Bands is 2. So it does mean that there's a significant price move has happened. So you want to find does that really mean anything in terms of looking at historical data? So how could we determine that? Well, one thing that is very easy to do in the program is take this list of events. These are now you might call these entry events. So what you're going to say is, what happens if I take each one of these events for these stocks, and I buy or sell, up to you, the stock on that day, and all I want to do is know is there a significance in cross above upper Bollinger Band, and how would I know that? Well, one way is not to actually put an exit criteria in, and it's to go. So you go over to Trade Simulation. That's the last tab along the bottom here, and in Trade Simulation you say, I'm going to use those events, those entry events, and I'm going to go long whenever the event is true. I'm going to go long on the close of the bar. So that's the same bar that generated the cross above the upper Bollinger Band. I'm going to go long, and I'm going to exit after, and you can just choose a fixed hold period. Okay, if you say 1 bar, you're essentially there finding out whether that indicator, a cross above that indicator, has any statistical significance in the historical data, because the following day is very important after the event occurred. Obviously, the more days you get beyond the event occurring, the more other factors come into play in terms of what's causing the price movement. But the day after your event, that has the most significant impact on price. So you can say 1 day, I'm going to hold it for 1 day, and I'm going to exit on the close of that day, and basically that's it. That's all I'm going to say here. I'm not going to limit anything. I'm going to, doesn't matter about allowing duplicates in this case, and I'm just going to run this. Okay, so I'll hit run. This will generate a trade for every one of those events. So it's gone and done that. There's 11,226 of those trades. And it says that the number of days held is 2. The reason for that, for those paying attention, is that the entry was on the close of the bar that the event occurred. And then the exit was on the close of the next bar. So that's actually a 2-day holding over 2 days, essentially. So yeah, 11,200 trades. It shows a profit here. But if we go back, if we go and look at the actual trade summary, we'll get actual statistics. And so all those trades, 49.99% of those trades were winning trades, and 49.12 were losing trades. So that's a signal that on a 1-day hold has a 50-50 chance essentially of moving one way or another. But obviously you have to look at how much it moved. So the winners moved 2.07% and the losers moved 1.9% down. Okay, very small differences, but these are the things that you can test. It's just showing you the statistics of a particular event. And then all of the other information in here, also statistics around the event. When it comes to trade simulation, you can also look at the daily equity. That's always a fun thing to do. There are 2 charts on here. If you just restrict it to daily equity, this is actually a run then of buying those trades, holding those trades, selling them after 1 day. The chart at the bottom is how many open positions you have. That should line up with the entries and exits over here when you see a huge number of, for instance, 11/9/2020, huge number of trades or stocks on that day. That should coincide with a large bar over here as well. Where's 2020? It's over here. And so, yeah, somewhere around one of these bars around here. So yeah, so that's how many open trades there were. So that's the pure daily equity. Personally, this is not so interesting because you'll never get that exact sequence of trades again. It's a one-off that you've got all those trades, but you can't. You're never going to reproduce the order in which those trades occurred. It's going to be billions and billions to one. So a better thing to do, we'll talk about that in a future part of this series, is a Monte Carlo analysis where you take the trades and you kind of randomize them, and then you string them together in a random way. But you do that 1,000 times, and then you take the average of that, and that gives you a much better idea of the validity, viability of your system. What else have we got here? We've got the P&L distribution. We can expand that a bit. Oops, it's moved off. P&L distribution basically gives you and I've seen some interesting charts. There's for those of you who know Paul Duncan from Gamma Edge, they've done some amazing work with EdgeRater and with option pricing to come up with some incredible systems. And I hope to get Paul on soon at some point to talk more about that. But they've got some incredibly profitable systems on there. But you have now this blue line, which is your basically 0% line. Anything on the right-hand side of this line is a trade that made some money. Anything on the left, these are all trades that lost money. And then the height of these bars are how many trades are in that particular range. So from 0 to -1%, there were 2,643 trades. But from 0 to 1%, there were 2,750. And it goes, all the way out. The further out you go, obviously, you're not making a whole. There are fewer trades that make these higher percentages. You end up with this pretty standard-looking histogram. What you really want in a good trading system is the majority of the trades to be over on the right-hand side. That would be good. Or a few trades over on the right-hand side, but way out in the very high percentages, and then the losing trades to be like all within 0 and 1%. Those can make profitable systems. At the bottom, you've got, it's basically a candle chart, and the candle chart is one candle per trade. If the candle is green, it was a trade that made money, and then the amount it made in percentage terms, not in dollar terms, is how high the bar is, and same on the downside. So the trade that made the most money here was actually over here on, well, I'm only looking at a small amount of data here, but in the view that I'm looking at, it's was a 24% gain, okay? And we should see that if we just scroll this top chart over, we can see there was a 24% gain stock over here, but there were stocks that made even more. What was the highest gain we had in this whole system? Okay, you can see there was a 51.5%. There were two of them, 51.5% gain. If we scroll this chart at the bottom, we're going to find where they are. I can just zoom it out. Okay, and eventually we'll find it. Obviously, we're looking at a lot of data in here. So yeah, okay. So there was a 60% gain there. That should also appear in here. Yeah. So anyway, that's one way of looking at it. Obviously, you don't really want to look at individual trades like that. The absolute best way of looking at individual trades is to look in the trade list, and you can always sort these by P&L. So, so the actual highest percentage gain trade in that whole list was Mara for a 2-day hold. That seems incredible, right? 172%. So the other thing with backtesting is verify all your numbers, all of the numbers that seem extreme. Make sure they're correct. So is the data correct? Double click on it. Take a look on a chart. Does this data look correct? It looks correct. Okay. You often see, not often, but sometimes you'll see data which has not been adjusted properly. This is a big problem with backtesting, is that as you go forward in time, stocks have splits and they have dividends. And what it means is that you have to go back and back adjust all of the prices to make sure that when you're doing a back test, that it all makes sense and you don't get these huge jumps, because a split in a stock is not really a huge jump in price. Okay, so you just want to go and make sure that these were not representing splits. And in this case, it wasn't. This was a huge jump in Marathon. If I put this chart on top just by pressing the button here, I can then scroll down through all of these and see all of it. So it's GameStop, everyone remembers that. And so yeah, but you can kind of get led into a false sense of security here, because we already know that this system, I say system in quote, you didn't see me doing quotes there, I was doing air quotes. You can see this system, everyone know, we all saw this system was a 50-50 shot. Okay, the daily equity actually, went up from left to right, but we can take that with a pinch of salt because it's a sequence hasn't been Monte-Carlo'd. Okay, and what's the other thing I can say about this? As the market is going up, say the overall market goes up huge one day for very positive news, all the stocks follow, then a lot of scans will fire, and you'll end up with just a big basket of stocks on that day in your trading system. Now, depending on the outcome of that day, maybe the next day there's a huge sell-off, you could have 100 stocks that all lost 10%, and that will make a huge difference to this daily equity chart. So that's something to bear in mind. That's also why I have the daily index on here, which is an interesting one, because it's basically taking the average of all of the trades on any one day. So if you have 100 stocks open on one day, the average gain of those trades might be whatever the average gain of those trades is that will then be applied to this index, essentially. So it's not having an effect based on the number of stocks that are open on one day. That was an awkward way of saying that. Okay. But also, it's a good idea to go and look at your losing trades. You can never lose more than 100%, so that's always good. And here, is this the correct? See, it looks a bit suspicious, but it probably is correct. That's Riot. That's Riot's platforms. Okay. Is GameStop? Yes, we all know that had major issues. Yeah, so they all look correct too. But it's a good, so that's why I say this is for the visually inclined. Is at all stages along development of a trading system, you can generally double click on your results and go and see the information on the chart with the information called out in terms of, was it an event on that day? Was it a trading system that had an entry on that day and a close on you can see where the close was, the reason for the close. In this case, it was the whole period, etc. So they're the aspects of EdgeRater that I wanted to cover in this kind of first part of the 4-part series. And this was really the basics of the software, where it came from, what's changed, what's new in the software. And for anyone who's taken the trial and you've never played with EdgeRater before, hopefully this will give you an idea of, I know there was a lot of information in here, especially when we got to looking at entries and exits and trade simulation. But there'll be a copy of this recording of this video will come your way, and you can play that back and stop it at any point and see exactly what I did. Also, if you have any questions about the software as you're going through, you can email me, chrisw@edgerater.com, and I will either answer you directly or include an answer in the next part of the session so that everybody can benefit from your question. So I look forward to kind of working on that and seeing you guys at the next one. If you have any questions, I'll see a couple coming in. I'll be happy to answer questions for now. I'm sure there's a lot that I didn't cover, but we have another 3 sessions to go, and so we'll have time for everything. Okay, so Gary is asking, and this is a good question, purchased EdgeRater Pro 2020 several years ago. Is there a charge to upgrade to EdgeRater Pro 2024? No, there's no charge, Gary. It's if you purchase EdgeRater Pro 2020, you have what is called a Pro Forever license, and so you can just download 24, and you will be able to use your same login information you had before, serial key. And the upgrade process is quite straightforward, actually. So the upgrade process is as follows. Let me bring up a chart here. Chart. Let me bring up a web browser. That's always good. Okay, upgrade process. Here we go. We go to edgerater.com. We'll go to we'll click on this icon here. Click on download EdgeRater Pro 2024. This will give you a setup.exe file. Run that file, and you'll now install EdgeRater Pro 2024. You'll get some messages about installing data. Click on yes to those, and that's it. You will have both 2020 and 24 side by side at that point, but I recommend uninstalling 2020. To avoid any confusion and potential conflict. Although I can't really think of there. I know there are some conflicts that could occur. So yeah, it would be best to uninstall 2020 once you've installed 24. So, and then Gary, will you be able to take advantage of the 24 if you don't have a data subscription? Yes, you will. You'll get this massive speed improvement that I talked about, 2 times when you're running some templates, they're going to be twice as fast. What else will you get? Well, yeah, I mean, you'll get, the only things you won't have if you don't subscribe to the premium data is updated templates. Okay, or sorry, updated templates. You won't have the premium end of day data, you won't have the options data. Okay, so some of the templates require the options data. For instance, anything that's in the options analysis category, they do require the options data. The straddle busting template, the implied volatility template, that they require the options data. So you won't be able to run those templates, but you'll be able to run all of the templates you had previously. So it's still recommended to, but it's definitely worthwhile. It's a major upgrade to go and upgrade your 2020. So Gary, yeah, this is a really good question. This is an excellent question. So will my scripts upgrade from 2020 to 24? If you've written a lot of scripts or any scripts whatsoever, when you install 24, you will not see your scripts initially. Let's come over here. Okay, you'll normally look under chart scripts for your scripts. That's where you normally find them, and you'll normally see them under my scripts. You will see one script in here because the DLL, this is the I talked about before, remember? I'll show you that again quickly. So under chart scripts compiled, the my scripts XML DLL, that's your compiled file. It hasn't yet been compiled, okay? And you know, they're your own scripts, so it's in your own XML file. So what you have to do, it's very straightforward, is you just have to click on whatever script you see under my scripts, press edit, and then this will bring up your my scripts XML file. You'll find all your scripts in there, and then do file and save. That will save and compile your scripts, and they will then appear. The DLL will be created, and they will appear over here on the right hand side. So it's quite straightforward. And if you have any issues with that, please send an email. I'll be happy to help. We haven't had anybody who yet, touch wood, who has lost any scripts, and some people have quite a large number of scripts. So that process seems to be working well. Always recommend, the other thing is, I definitely do recommend backing up when you do, before you do an install of the new version. I should just say this, just in case something did go wrong, make sure you back up your documents EdgeRater folder, just so you have everything. Just copy it to a different location. You can delete that copy after you've done the upgrade and everything's working fine. Okay. So let's see, we've got, yeah, so Jim, that will be your issue as well. Jim, yeah, you're going to have that same issue. Just make sure you go in there and press the save button. So do the edit, press the save, it will compile the scripts, they'll all be back. Also, Jim, do you update the SP500 and other indexes periodically? Yes, I do tend to do that. I think they were just updated at the beginning of December. They are periodically updated. SP500 should be up to date. Tom, template. Yeah, Tom, your issue, Tom, is interesting because without seeing your screen, it's really hard for me to know what is going on there. So to me, it sounds like, you don't actually have the this folder properly installed. Let's see where this compiled 2024. If you look for that folder, make sure that's there. You need to have these DLLs. These contain all of the scripts that power the templates. So just make sure these are all there, and that could be why your template's not. If you find they're not there, just uninstall and reinstall. It is possible that when you did the first install, there was some interruption in your internet connection, and so these things didn't get copied in. But I think that would be my first recommendation would be uninstall and reinstall. I know that's like everyone says that, but in this case, it really makes sense. Okay, I have a quick poll. Let me see if I can run this poll. Are you ready, everybody? Here we go. I have to pause the share. Let's do that. Stop share. Boom. Polls. Here we are. Launch poll. Okay. See if you can answer that question. 2 questions. And let's just see what we get from that. There is, I would say, almost 100% of people are on the positive side of interested in backtesting. So, and with a lot that are at the 10 level. So, so that is good to know. Good to know going forward. So we can tailor more of these things to doing things like that. I think in the coming session, it just depends on when Ken can come and do a presentation on his templates. But but yeah, we're gonna go through a nice trade simulation or backtesting session, which will be putting together a proper script with entries and exits, putting together a batch run of that so we can change parameters to create multiple simulations. We'll put together Monte-Carlo simulations to figure out, if you run Monte-Carlo on them, whether it's a profitable system. And then we'll also talk about multi-factor analysis, which is a real interesting area, but I'm not sure that most people take advantage of at the moment. But multi-factor testing has huge potential for improving your trading system. So yeah, we'll talk about that, and then that's probably going to be a whole session on that. And then we'll also do a session on putting together templates. So another whole session on how to create your own scanning template. So once you've written a script, you've got a script which identifies stocks that you're interested in. You've run it through trade simulation. You found that you have a profitable system. You then want to be able to identify those stocks on a daily basis. And so you put together a template to give you the scans, to give you those stocks on those that are coming up that meet your criteria. And so we'll talk about how to put a template together to do that. So I hope that all is good for you all. Thanks for the poll answers. I will share the results. So yeah, that's great. I see the majority of people on here actually have EdgeRater already, which is good. And if you know anybody who you think might want to own EdgeRater, now is a great time to purchase it, because we currently have our introductory offer. Okay, all right. I'm gonna oh, wait a second, have another question. Okay, yeah, Tom. Question is, you have a new computer. When you load EdgeRater, can you just copy my scripts from the old machine and drop it into the ER scripts folder? The answer to that one is yes. You can copy your MyScripts XML file and put it into the chart scripts folder, but then you still have to go and do that compilation step I talked about, which is basically opening up the scripts, pressing save, which compiles it, creates you a new DLL, and then it should all be good. Whenever you're doing a new computer, to put a new computer together, I would highly recommend copying your entire documents EdgeRater folder, just to ensure that you have everything, because any templates that you've created are also going to be in there. All of the reports that you've previously run are going to be in there, and any configuration files you've put together, for instance, with trade simulation, you may put your own trade simulation batch runs together. They'll all be in there too, and you wouldn't want to lose those. So just make sure to back up that whole EdgeRater documents EdgeRater folder. Okay, I think I'm gonna call it here. Thanks everyone for hanging out this morning. It's been a fun hour. I'm excited for EdgeRater Pro 24. It really means that we can move forward with all the new technology and new features that we want to add. It gives everyone a much more powerful system. And yeah, so anyway, I look forward to seeing you at the next session, which will be on Wednesday. Remember, it's Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, and the final one on Wednesday. So see you all on Wednesday. Thanks a lot. And Gary, to see the templates, just go into your program, look at what's in the what's new folder, and that's listed in terms of months. So you'll see that. You're welcome. Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks all. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.